Is Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 30 of season 4. I'm Paul LePage, hosting solo tonight, but ably assisted by Danny from Baltimore Wolves on the socials.
Good evening.
And Alex from New York producing.
Hey.
And to guest the return of a firm listener favourite in Boca Raton, Florida, it is Teddy Eley.
Hey, Paul. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, excited to get on for a win. I feel like usually I'm on for the gloom and doom. So, yeah, nice change.
And that is exactly what it was. We are back to Saturday. Wolves 2, Fulham 1. And it was nice to celebrate that victory. So, right from the get-go, a surprise or two with that team news that came out. It was a switch to a back four. Santi Breno came in, replacing an injured Craig Dawson and partnering Max Kilman. And it was Nathan Fraser to make his first EPL start, Totti making way, and he was leading the line in what was showing to be a 4-2-3-1 formation. So, Teddy, what did you think of that approach right from the get-go from Gary O'Neill?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited to bring it back. I think it's the first time since, one of the first couple of games of the season that we haven't had a 5 at the back. And, ever since, even Bruno and Nuno, I just feel like the 4 at the back has never worked for Wolves. So, I was pretty excited tactically to see what was going to happen. And then, right at the 10th minute, Jean Ruckner, Bellegarde gets injured and kind of ruins the whole entire game plan. So I was a little bummed out to see that. But I guess we'll have to wait another few weeks before we see the 4 at the back again.
It was that the case. It definitely seemed of something happening that early. You kind of got a feeling that it was pretty bad or pretty serious to have him taken off. And I don't know. We gave up that Harry Wilson 1-on-1. Tosin hit the bar for them from that corner. Do you think, Danny, it was that new shape causing the lethargy, the early substitution, or a combination of the both?
Probably a combination. I like to believe that, maybe we're not cursed to always be terrible at a 4, but we definitely are rusty whenever it comes out. And I feel like that I saw a lot of that where the connection between Kilman and Santi is just, it hasn't been built over those years and years. I don't know if it's in our DNA to play 5 at the back at this point, but whatever Nuno did in Austria, seems to have fully settled in. And whenever we move away from that, people look a little bit confused. So, I mean, it was us being a little bit slow to adapt, probably the 4 at the back to the speed of the game, and then also just the start-stop. I mean, even before he got injured, I felt like there were several fouls. It wasn't anything, crazy or overly violent, but, he was getting fouled. Neto, obviously, Nori, whenever he breaks away, is just getting fouled. It didn't help to then have Bellegarde go off. I think he was down once and then got back up and then went down the final time. And it's very disruptive.
And then just before half-time, marauding run from Neto into the box, pulls up with another hamstring injury. Different from the one that kept him out for a portion of the season already, but he came off, replaced by Totti. We go back to what looked something closer to that usual back 3. And then with half-time, it was somewhat of the cliched game of 2 halves. Pretty much out the gate, 52nd minute, 1-0 Wolves. Out Nuri, breaking the deadlock. Failed header. Came to Totti. Bit of magic from him. Across it into Ran, who fired home quite expertly. And then pretty quickly after that, really, as far as Wolves concerned, did seem like a comfortable 2-0. Tom Kearney, own goal after Semedo shot deflected off him and in. So, Alex Karma's a bitch for Kearney after the reverse fixture, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. I guess I never realized how many players on Fulham I would have on a hateable list for Wolves, something that we were creating earlier this season, just because they seem like such a nondescript club that no one really likes that much or hates that much. But yeah, it was. I mean, that shot was very, very wide from Semedo, so it was very, very good luck. I hate that the goal was taken away from him, but it's the proper call. But I also just wanted to shout out João Gomez in the build up to that goal, because I thought that was outstanding, and I saw that the club socials posted a very brief clip of that as well. So it's good to see him continue to produce, on both ends and really every kind of inch of the pitch, which has been refreshing, and the reason that he's now the latest person we talk about going to a major club. So
yeah, I saw a take online that just it's too good to not be repeated on the airwaves, and that's that Tom Kearney did a good bit of talking out of his backside in the reverse fixture, and so it's only fitting that the winner went off of his backside to go in.
Yeah, it was enjoyable for sure. So that was up to the 77th minute, and that was when Fraser was replaced by Doherty. You could kind of see the work that he'd put in, and it was certainly recognised by the commentators that probably that lack of minutes really showed with his conditioning. But he'd put in the work for sure. And then it was all manner of trying to figure out what type of formation that they were even putting out there with the players that we had on. And it was essentially Nouri was effectively a right winger. So it was a little backs against the wall effort. Fulham had their chances. Great save in particular off from Jose Sarr off our friend Mr. Traore. And it meant Fulham finished, what was it, an expected goals of 2.7 after 23 shots on target. 23 shots, 7 of them on target compared to our 0.83 expected goals off of 8 shots, 3 on target. But as night follows day, in the 90th minute plus 8, if you didn't put your absolute mortgage on Alex Iwobi scoring, then I don't know what to tell you people, because it always happens, and as it did, luckily that was the last kick of the game. But guys, can you just summarize that? It seemed from the doom and gloom of those 2 injuries, such a positive performance, testament to that team ethic, those players playing out of position. The Wolves, when they tweeted Lemina's heat map, I think yesterday or the day before, generally could have been the GOAT. He was everywhere. So who really stood out for you in terms of man of the match?
I could go first. Yeah, I thought Lemina, right after that 10th minute, he got thrust into that pretty much left wing role. If you look at the heat map from the game as well, he's the highest player on the pitch up there with Fraser. And, obviously he's not a left winger. He's 30, not as quick or fast as, Neto or Hwang. But, yeah, I mean, I thought he kind of, led from the front. The second half, noticeably, when Toddy came on, we played back with her. Back 5 shape again. I thought he was really instrumental in leading the press, and we got so many turnovers early in that second half, which didn't lead to any goals, but it's just the change in energy that we had. So I thought Lemina was awesome with Gomes, a very close second.
If he'd have put that chance away, Teddy, in the second half, for all that just looked like it was always going to be a goal. So would that have capped off a genuine 10 out of 10 performance for you?
Oof. Yeah, maybe 9.5 out of 10. Don't want to quite give him 10, but yeah, he was awesome on Saturday, and yeah, we're so lucky to have him. Just been great this year. So
yeah, I mean, it was such a positive performance, like you said. I mean, it was such an odd game in some ways, because I mean, the first half, I thought up until those injuries, we were playing fine, not anything spectacular. And I've never heard such an audible sort of gasp / groan when Neto got injured. because he knew exactly what had happened. Everyone in the stadium knew exactly what had happened. And it was just, even like the different highlights I've watched, the different commentators all sort of had a similar reaction of just like, oh, and it was such a weird, flat first half just because of the injuries. But in terms of the game, it was, I don't know, it wasn't much to write home about. I thought Wolves were perfectly fine. They weren't glaringly bad in any way. And I was really happy to get to half at 0-0, but then we came out and Fulham just couldn't, their back line especially just couldn't seem to live with our press. They just kept giving it to us. I was actually, funnily enough, I was watching it with two Fulham fans, and they didn't seem that surprised, but it was just like a very uncomfortable 20 minutes for them, I think, of just watching their back line constantly pass it to our midfielders. And yeah, that was when players like João Gomez just really were shining, because him and Lamina are just made to win balls back and to get it further forward on the field. And that's what we saw. And there's so many good performances. It's like, it's again, such a weird game, because I'd say a great team performance, but it's hard to pick out like 10 out of 10s or 9 out of 10s. I thought there were a lot of like 8 out of 10s, where it's like everybody sort of did their bit to cover those losses. And so, yeah, I've heard this a lot around the other outlets or whatever, but it's a real performance to be proud of, even more so than like, beating City, which like everybody can get up for beating City, but this is like, it's really tough. You're already suffering with injuries, and then you lose your last two pure attackers in the first half. It's wild.
Yeah, it was funny at halftime too. I was back home watching it with my mom, and I was like, well, there goes our, starting 3 attackers all injured. I was like, we generally don't have any goal scorers on the pitch. And my mom was like, yeah, probably have to be some scorers that normally don't score. And yeah, sure enough, it's Aït-Nour with his first goal this season, and Nelson Semedo with his first goal in what feels like a really long time. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a struggle moving forward without any of those 3, which I'm quite nervous about, but I can deal with that in later weeks.
Alex, any honourable mentions from Saturday for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird because I agree with everything, and I think there were a lot of 8 out of 10s on the pitch, and a lot of people who deserve to be commended for doing things they should probably never be asked to do, on a Premier League team. But we are a thin squad that has suffered a ton of injuries, so they had to do that. And even Ryan Aït-Nour, to a degree, having to play right wing as a left-footed wing back, like we know he's capable going forward, but that's pretty good. But I think my shout out still has to go to Saw. And to me, it's like there's 1 or 2 matches a year he'll just win you the game. And as good as it feels to see some of these other guys shine, like without him, Wolves don't win this. 2.7, I think it was, XG for Fulham. Like a lot of those chances came at the end, sure, but he was making some great saves that could have turned, had a worse shot stopper in goal. And this could have been, instead of a really encouraging win, a pretty heartbreaking loss, with Fulham coming from behind and us staring at, almost all of our wingers out off of a loss to Fulham. So I just want to say, he may be not great, and not, we may not be as comfortable with him with the ball at his feet, and his distribution may not be great all the time. But sometimes being a great shot stopper is a huge asset, obviously, as a goalkeeper. And this was certainly one of those games. So hats off to him, because he continues to deliver at times when this team needs him most.
I think it was one of those goalkeeping performances that in that type of game went under the radar. And it was only afterwards, when you're looking back at those saves and the highlights and thinking, yeah, he was a firm contributor to that victory. And I think that was really cemented when you get a Team of the Week by Alan Shearer and the BBC, and he was there and Aït-Nour was in it. And you look at that and think, yeah, it's a pretty decent reflection of how that game was won, both defensively and the attacking intent from Aït-Nour at left back as well. So some strong performances across the board.
I just want to spend just a second just shouting out Aït-Nour. I know we've already done it, but like, what a great little weirdo that we have. He's such a delight to watch. It's so funny, I think Wolves fans have known for a long time what an amazing talent he is. It's funny to see other people notice because he is such a unique player and not in a way that's always going to show up in highlight reels because he just does it's like Gary O'Neill, as always, got the analysis spot on when he said in whatever game that was. I think it was after the Newcastle game or something, the previous one, that, he does 10 Maradona walks every game. He's a little bit mad. And it's just, what a weird guy, but what a delightful player to watch. So amazing.
And we got to hear his voice.
Yes, twice in 1 week.
Which is absolutely insane. Like, I shouldn't have been surprised at how he sounds, but I was, kind of like aggressively French accent. He's just like our little man of mystery. I saw some tweets going around with other people noticing what many of us probably have noticed with, like, he's also like very hairy. He just reminds me of Teen Wolf. If he was starring in anything, he would star in Teen Wolf. And I just love that about him. What a fun guy.
I was telling the Fulham fans that were with us, I was like, he's like Mohamed Salah if Mohamed Salah never went inside a gym. That's what he looks like. He's just like...
No, he has the God-given French technical ability, apparently, that, just comes with, being from there.
I'm convinced he's going to pull off a worldie one of these weeks and beat 4 or 5 guys and burst into the box, take it around the keeper, then like a no-look shot into the net. I feel that's in his DNA and it's coming. So
we will be there for it.
Yeah, inject it for sure.
Yeah.
Whole Lot of Wolves is looking to expand its squad. So if you enjoy working in the creative capacity and share a passion for Wolves and graphic design, you could be the perfect addition to our growing crew. If you're interested in learning more, drop us a note via email at hello@wholelotofwolves.com or reach us on X at WLWpod.
So it is the big one on Saturday, FA Cup quarter-final time. We are speaking about a round that has the word final in it. So that is the progress that we're enjoying. Wolves at home to Coventry City. That's Saturday again, 8:15. Eastern Time kickoff, and it is live on ESPN Plus. So, given all these injuries, Teddy, how can you see us lining up, and will it be enough to get through?
No disrespect to Coventry, and they're in the championship for a reason. In 8th place. I mean, they've got a fellow U.S. men's national team striker up top, but I think even with all of our injuries, Wolves, should, it's the key word, should have the quality. But I was thinking about the lineup the other day, and I feel like it's going to probably, it's Sa, and then I feel like we're going to revert to the back 5 with Semedo, Kilman, Dawson, Toti, and Hugo Bueno at left wing back. So hopefully you guys can see what's coming there. And I think Doyle and Lamina and Gomes will be in center midfield. And I can see us starting with a front 3 of Sarabia, Frazier, and Aït-Nouri at left wing. I think Julian did it last year, maybe once. But I feel like, that freedom he has, and, we don't really have any other attacking options. I'm pretty excited to see if Aït-Nouri could do anything on that left wing there.
I think that's a quite subtle nod to the creativity that he can bring. I think either as that furthest forward on the left-hand side or maybe a tucked-in left midfielder in some way as well. I could see him picking up that role as well if he went more tighter and had Fraser and Sarabia as the front 2. I think he could play a 3 in the middle and have Aït-Nouri as one of those players as well. Danny, do you think we will, or should we see Matheus Cunha?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I guess we won't really know how likely it is until we get a press conference from Gary O'Neill, but I guess the vibes right now are that it's roughly a 50-50 because Gary O'Neill wouldn't rule him out. But I think that I'd like to believe that most of the fan base feels that if he can't be risked, then he shouldn't be risked. And I'm sure Gary O'Neill feels that way, regardless of the pressure that Cunha might put on him. But I don't know. Based on literally no medical training and only my 2 eyes watching social media, I would say that the recovery stuff that Cunha was posting about on Instagram, like a couple weeks ago, even seemed very ahead of schedule already. So I would believe that he's going to start on the bench and then come on if necessary. I would be very surprised if he started, and I would be slightly less surprised, but still maybe unlikely, that if he wasn't involved at all.
Now, with that medical opinion, that medical knowledge, that social media expertise, what did you make of having Joe Gomez's legs wrapped around him in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu style? That's surely a setup for someone who's 100% fit to play, or not?
Oh my God. I mean, everybody's going to assume that he's fit to play because of that. But I also immediately thought of the medical staff who are currently have, like whatever, 24 people sitting in their waiting room, and just seeing that on social media, just like head in hand, just like, guys, can you please not do that? I also just saw a thing, someone was saying how they saw Cunha in the box he was sitting in for the Fulham game, celebrating very animatedly, and it's just like, man, you gotta calm it down. Can we like restrain him like some sort of like Clockwork Orange style like dentist chair to keep him from hurting himself, because we are truly down to the bare bones.
In all seriousness, Alex, do you think Gary O'Neill's comments regarding Neto's injury, the latest one, will impact his thinking on Cunha for this week? That if he's available, he'll probably start from the bench, but if he can, he won't bring him on.
Yeah, I think it kind of has to, because I think there's a very good chance, like Danny said, that Cunha will technically be medically cleared and probably be in the squad. But how can you not second guess after Neto? And I know it was a different hamstring, right? But like the whole thing is like if one of Cunha's hamstrings is even a little bit less than 100%, the body overcompensates and is more likely to injure another portion of the body. So the last thing we need is like Cunha's other leg or ankle or quad or hammy or whatever it is to pick up something that's going to set him back, even if it's just another couple of weeks. Like he's kind of all we have left, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but just find a way, however, to keep a clean sheet and get a goal in this game and save Cunha for the game that would be taking place at Wembley if we win this, which is absolutely insane to think about that we're arriving there. So,
and it is on the eve of the international break as well, that again, you got that chance to wrap him up in cotton wool. You've probably got the excuse that you can give the national team that if he is called up by Brazil, they could say, well, let's take a step back from this, Mateus, and your time will come, but we really need you to be protected through the end of the season. So I think that factors into it as well.
Yeah.
So prediction time. We'll take a quick look back to last week. It was Josh. He was the only one to get any points on the board from the Fulham game. So it's a little like the top of the EPL at the moment about who's going to win the thing. We got the guests on 21 points. Josh is 20, just one behind. Alex and Danny, they're tied on 19 below that. And it is solely me at the bottom, very much looking like a Burnley or Sheffield United, or even after today's extremities at Dean Court, potentially Luton as well. I'm propping up everyone on 14. So I will give our guest the honours.
We'll go with Wolves 2-0.
I like it. Alex.
I am in agreement. I will say 2-0 as long as they play a back 3 or 5 or whatever we want to call it. There's a comfort in that I even on Saturday against Fulham, like the second that we went to that, I'm like, I think we're going to make it out of this thing alive. So I feel very much like a clean sheet is in the works if we just stick to what we know against Coventry.
Danny.
I'm going to go slightly more pessimistic and say 2-1. But I believe that Wolves win it in regular time. Thankfully for my own stress levels. There's a part of me that just feels, Haji Wright didn't get selected for this latest U.S. men's team call-up, and he's already been having an okay season, and he's going to take that frustration out on us.
Wow. I didn't really want to think about that. And I'm trying. Generally, I think after Saturday, I was like, Paul, what are you getting stressed out about? We're safe. We're on the verge of like, no matter what happens, it's been a brilliant season from what it could have been. So I'm just trying to be zen and chilled and relaxed. I'm not looking at any type of negativity on Saturday. Any bad vibes, any worries about that lower league team coming to the bigger team, doing an upset. Would I have probably preferred us to be going away to their place? Maybe just a teensy bit, but I'm in that 2-0 camp. I just think the positivity after Saturday, the momentum that we've got, they can draw a lot from what's been going on. So I think taking care of business 2-0, I'm in that camp.
How different would everyone's predictions be if this was a midweek match? That's all I could think about. If this was like a Wednesday evening,
oh my God,
I'm like, they're definitely losing.
Yeah. Or even if we had a Premier League game midweek after it or something where we had to be worried about it. Honestly, this is the best possible time to go into an international break. Just give it your all and don't get injured.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
Alex, what have the good people sent in this week?
We got a lot of good questions this week, many of them coming from Twitter. You could always tweet your No Stupid Questions at us or X or whatever we want to call it. WLW Pod is the handle where you can do so. So let's start with Chris Wood, who says, if Wolves make the FA Cup final, no matter if they win or lose, would you rank Gary O'Neill ahead of Nuno? So this would mean they beat Coventry and then win a semifinal against, is it the winner of City Newcastle that they would be facing?
It's totally random.
Okay. Yeah, it's not seeded. So it's likely to be, City, Liverpool, or Man United, maybe.
Yeah. So they advance to the final. Is Gary O'Neill already above Nuno? Come on. What do we think?
It feels like it's getting close to that. I mean, maybe that's just, my newish fan sentiments about it. I haven't experienced the depths. But at the same time, it's like, Alex, you said when we were talking about the FA Cup a couple weeks ago, like, you think about the journey that it takes to get there. And if we beat any of those 3 that are the most likely to get to the final, that's already going to be a huge statement victory, against, City, obviously. But also Liverpool has that, air of inevitability around it with Klopp on his way out. And even United bringing echoes of the previous FA Cup run that we don't talk about. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that if fans could have gone to games and could have gone to those final Europa League games, I think we wouldn't even be considering whether Gary O'Neill was approaching Nuno. But because that last bit has such a weird asterisk over it, I think that we are getting to that point. And also, I think people are connecting with Gary O'Neill in a different way than they did with Nuno. Nuno was beloved, but at the same time, somewhat of a distant personality. And I think there's a lot of excitement around not just Gary O'Neill, what he's doing now, but also his potential as a young manager and what he could be in the future. So I don't really have an answer. I guess it's a very serious maybe, I suppose.
I gotta say, I strongly disagree with Danny there. Yeah, I mean, Gary's nowhere close yet. I mean, there's a big difference between 8 months and 3 years. 3 amazing years. One FA Cup semifinal, Europa League quarterfinals. I mean, I know Paul can attest to it too. Yeah, League One sucks. Being in the championships, awful. And yeah, just that season in the championship, personally for me, was the best season I've ever followed. We're just going into every game. You knew you were going to dominate the competition and win, and then follow it up with 2 7th place finishes. The feel good factor. Imagine this feeling, Danny, but for 3 years, and it's kind of what it was like. So yeah, I mean, he's done a great job so far. Not negating that, but yeah, he's got a long way to go, in my opinion, to reach kind of Nuno status. And who knows what happens next year. I'm just saying, yeah, Nuno being able to do what he did for 3 consecutive years it was an awesome kind of journey to be on, and I think he's definitely still at the top for me, at least.
At the same time, sort of brings up that classic argument about manager of the season. Is it more impressive to achieve all that with an expensive squad for your division, or to do so against the odds? But I take your point.
Yeah, I will say Wolves have also had the least amount of players injured this year, if you go by the charts, which helps out a ton. So, but again, yeah, he's doing a great job. Not saying he isn't, but yeah.
I think what this season in particular could dispel a lot of ghosts. Just getting over that hump of that heartbreak of the semi-final. That would be such a achievement, just to have that natural progression into a final. And just even thinking of a FA Cup final as a legacy fan, that we've never even been in that type of touching distance in it really to compete. I think that speaks volumes. But I personally, with this question, I do have to see those magic Europa nights like the Turin or the Besiktas, though that was special times watching even from afar. So I think when and he'll start churning out some of those results, and then we can have O'Neill in that particular position, I think.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a question that came in on X from Nothing But Neto. On what basis and criteria should player of the season be decided? Is it strictly goal contributions, leadership, or something else? I don't think this answer, if we were to choose Wolves player of the season right now, is actually as obvious as we thought it might have been. There was a Neto era, then you kind of had to consider Wang, then the Acuna era, and now they're all hurt. So maybe you don't go with any of them. So what do you guys think? What's the criteria, Paul, that you would start with if you're choosing a Wolves player of the season right now?
So as you just mentioned that, I'd add consistency and consistency of being in the first 11. And then when you add that consistency onto the performances that they've constantly scaled to over that time, then that means you're looking at the likes of Lamina and even to an extent Semedo as well, that they've been constants in this team and have performed at a consistent level throughout the season. So those two would definitely be in my conversations, regardless of the goals and the assists and the playmaking from those others that we've mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially if Cunha is out for a bit longer, let's say that he's okay to be on the bench at Coventry, but then even after the break, he's only okay to be on the bench when we go back to league action. If he stays out for a little bit longer, this could be like the most open player of the season contests we've had in years. Just off the top of my head, a short list could be something like, Dawson, Semedo, both of those for sort of consistency. You have Lamina, who's obviously also been extremely consistent and had periods of like absolute dominance. You have João Gomez as a sort of beloved newcomer who's really growing, and everybody's excited about that. You have Neto, Cunha, Huang for their goal contributions and just sheer, excitement to watch them play. And that's already quite a long short list. So you're talking about almost half of a starting 11. So I don't know. I mean, there's some obvious favorites in there, but man, I struggled to come up with a clear criteria to pick one and just one.
Yeah, I personally feel like Lamina's the heart of the team right now, and kind of without him, you lose a little bit of that passion and that hunger to want to win. So yeah, in my opinion, he's up there. But yeah, I hadn't thought about Semedo, Paul. But yeah, it is a good point. Yeah, just been super consistent throughout. But yeah, I think Lamina's just had a few, like as we say, 10 out of 10 performances that just kind of move him up that hump.
Yeah,
So.
he's been a genuine game winner at times, so
Yeah.
that just stands you out. But you could just forget it all and say, who's the guy who scored 2 goals at Hawthorns to knock the Albion out the cup, and just give it to Cunha and be done with it? And everyone would have a problem with that, so we've got that to fall back on too.
Yeah, goal celebrations as a criteria.
Yeah.
He takes that one home. I am in no way saying this would be my player of the season. But if all of our other wingers are going to be hurt the rest of the year, there is a chance that when we look at goal contributions at the end of the year, Pablo Sarabia could be very, very high on that list.
Yes.
And little old frail, cartoonish looking Pablo Sarabia is one of their only guys who's still standing. So take that for what you will.
Yeah,
but,
really good shout.
He's a great presence, and he's someone that I think we had high expectations for. Everyone was down on, and now he's just kind of quietly going about his business. And he has improved us dramatically on set pieces, which I think has also been an asset. And hopefully, in a game like this one with no attackers healthy, it's Coventry. Maybe we could just nick one of those and get on with it.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, you mentioned Nelson Semedo as a possible player this season too, which I think finally we're past like the hate that comes his way. But we do have a question about him from Brian Donnelly, who was at the match, and what a match he got to witness. Brian, of course, frequent guest and leader of Charlotte Wolves, and he asks, Nelson Semedo's song was in full force on Saturday, basically the only player song that was sung. Who else on this current squad should have a song, but does not yet? I have to be honest, like the Nuno era, we kind of knew all of those songs, you could kind of sing along to the Neves songs, the Moutinho, and of course, Raul. What are the other ones that exist? I guess let's start there and then address Brian's question about who should have one.
Yeah, there's the Cunha one. Dawson's kind of got one.
Yeah.
Neto as well. But I think that we are in a dearth of player songs.
Lamina, I would say.
Yeah.
Neto has sort of more of a chant than a song.
Yeah, so isn't Neto just saying his last name? Yeah, it could be wrong.
Yeah. But I'd say, to me, the obvious one that's sticking out that probably is going to, if I had to guess the next one to get a song, it's going to be João Gomez. I don't know what that song will be, but in terms of like fan favorites who don't have songs, I think João Gomez has got to be the next one.
I think the best thing about that one is he would absolutely love it, and he'd be retweeting the shit out of it. And if he could hear it in the background on the clip, he'd just be like retweet and share it and be doing his own social media. I think that would just put so much fuel into him that we've got to try and come up with something.
Yeah, that's part of my thinking too, because it's like it's partly what the player does on the field. It's also like who's going to respond the best to a song. I know that that's not always like the way it works out, but I feel like that's the players that it ends up happening for. Like, I mean, like Max Gilman has been with us for so long, and whether you think that he's going to be the captain long term or not, like you'd think that a player with that kind of longevity would eventually get a song about him. But at the same time, I don't know that he's such an understated guy. I don't know that he needs a song to be his best player. Whereas you really can't imagine a player like João Gomez. He's going to put in some crunching tackle and fist pump right afterwards, and then that song is going to break out, and he's just going to go and do it 3 more times.
Yeah.
I think a similar vein as well that Out Nuri'd love a song as well, and that would add an inch to his strut around the pitch if you could hear that coming out the South Bank. I think he'd really warm to that also.
He never quite knows what to do with the crowd too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to also, I just want to say, like, I think we do kind of need a little bit of this. I think it would just like enhance the experience and maybe be thrilling for players like Gomez, but I'm happy to take our time to come up with a great one. I know many people always nominate those. You see them going around social media. It's about the right song, not just a song.
Right.
I will say, like, what's the genesis of a song making it at Wolves? Yeah, I don't know, Paul, if you have any insight on that. I'm kind of curious to see how they do start off.
Yeah, it would be genuinely interesting to take the social history anthropological approach and study it a little more, but there's definitely something over the years of players that have had a song, and it even goes to the extent that there's something special about them. Like obviously you've got Bully who had a bunch just off the back of his goal scoring feat, but then was there something that we pretty much recognized immediately in Raul, that as soon as he started scoring, it just captured the imagination and he just naturally dovetailed into a song as well. So there's something special about it. There's an element of taking it from elsewhere and repurposing it and coming up with your own version. So very few of them have ever been original. So it would be genuinely good to come up with our own. That would be immense, that you had a special song for someone that we created. That would be phenomenal.
The next Wolves Films production, The Anatomy of a Song,
Yes.
a documentary about how that starts. Here's a hint. It's probably a few dozen pints of Carling. No, I will say, I just wanted to say, like, it's not a player who should have one, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have Gary O'Neill's Barmy Army, but like we had like 4 Lopetegui songs like within a month of him being at Wolves.
Yeah.
I feel like we need a more, Gary O'Neill specific one than just Gary O'Neill's Barmy Army, which is basically just, what every manager gets. I think he deserves that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is one that I'm not aware of. Sometimes it's hard to hear on the dodgy Peacock stream that we get and pay for every month. I don't know.
And you'll like it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We shouldn't complain. We get every game. If we lived in the Midlands, we wouldn't be able to say that. Okay, I'm going to throw this one in because it's pretty funny. Drew Freakin is his handle, and he says on X, if you could recall a winger from loan with all the injuries, would you choose Geddes or Podence? Kem Campbell is my answer, actually.
Good.
Wow.
Yeah. I haven't seen what Geddes is doing. I know Podence scored in the Derby of Eternal Enemies, Panathinaikos against Olympiacos over the weekend, which was a loss for Olympiacos. So,
yeah, you still keeping up with the Greek League?
Yeah, a little bit. And every time I see Podence's name, I'm like, can we make some money on this guy, please? I don't think
I would take Geddes back. I'm delusional enough to feel that Gary can fix him or whatever. I know he didn't want to be here. I mean, there's a lot of players that got shuffled around by George Mendes, but he is a genuinely decent player, and I think his skill set suits the Premier League well. And it's just a bummer that it didn't really work out because he was sort of shuffled to us, maybe semi against his will, and then walked into a team that had serious creativity and goal scoring problems. So, and he didn't create those problems. He was just, didn't help them either. But he's doing okay at Villarreal. He's with Yerson Mosquera, who unfortunately had a real horror show of a game most recently. But Yerson Mosquera has been decent, and I think Geddes has also been a decent winger for them. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of the Villarreal games, just when I have a chance, and he's kind of been acting as like I think they're playing a 4-4-2. He's kind of acting as a secondary striker up there, and just from what I've seen, just he's an outlet with speed and can whack the ball, really well, and I think he would. Yeah, I mean, obviously any attacking player I think would help right now, but just his pace on kind of the counter attack would I think be awesome.
Yeah. If Gary O'Neill turned him into a solid squad player for Wolves, then he passes Nuno, and he'll probably
I would say I would. He'd be getting there.
Yeah,
if that were the case. All right, final one for today. From Ryan at GB Sixpack. What should one expect in Nashville with the Wolves faithful? Paul, what do we got?
Well, from a whole lot of Wolves standpoint, we will be at Acme Seed and Feed, which is on Broadway on the Friday night. So if you're getting into town for the festivities from 6:30 p.m., we will be there. So head to the second floor. It's an outdoor deck. Hopefully the weather will spring-like and beautiful. Wear your Wolves gear. Come and say hello. We'll mingle. We'll I'm sure we're going to have a really good showing. I think Nashville's an attractive place for people to travel to. It's a great city. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun on the Friday night, and then the Saturday, as soon as the game finishes, we will head back to that venue and we will do a live recording of Whole Lot of Wolves for the following week's episode. So I'd anticipate that starting around 11:30 a.m. So come with your no stupid questions ready to ask live and in person. So Teddy, as we approach the final whistle, let the listeners know how they can contact you, especially when it comes to watching the games in your part of the country.
Yeah, definitely. If you're ever in South Florida, feel free to hit me up. It's just at Teddy Eley on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever you use. So I would be happy to watch a couple games. And thanks so much for having me on, everybody. Been a blast.
And that is full time. Thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, and to you, the listener. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave a 5-star review on the podcast platform that you use. And as you head into this weekend, be it at school or the workplace, and you asked, what plans do you have? You can look them straight in the eye and say, up the mighty Wembley Wolves.